Our next speaker is Maxime Bernier. He has had a long standing in business and worked for several financial and banking institutions, and then worked as the vice president of the Montreal Economic Institute. In 2006, he entered the parliament. He was elected as a member of parliament. And thereafter, he was appointed to the cabinet in February 2006 as the Minister of Industry. Mr. Bernier has also served as the Minister of Foreign Affairs from 2007 and 2008. Thereafter, in 2011, when he was re-elected, he was appointed the Minister of State for Small Businesses and Tourism. In 2018, he left the Conservative Party. I think he did the right thing. To sit as an independent MP and announce the launch of a new party, People's Party of Canada. The topic of his talk today is why mass immigration and radical multiculturalism are bad for Canada. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Maxime Bernier.
Okay, I have the expert here. Yeah. There we go. Can I speak? Yeah. Okay. So, hi everybody. I'm very pleased to be with you today, and also I want to thank Jean for inviting me. Yeah, no, it's okay. For inviting me to speak to you today. And as you may know, the title of my speech is If Mass Immigration and Radical Multiculturalism Are Good or Bad for Our Country. As you may know, I made my first major speech on immigration in August 2019 in Mississauga, Ontario, to announce the People's Party of Canada policy on this topic before the general election in October 2019. Today, you can read about the impact of mass immigration on our society in the news almost every day. 5 years ago, however, I was the only politician in Canada who dared talk about it. It was still a completely taboo subject. If you've been following Canadian politics, you know that I was called a racist, xenophobe, anti-Canadian by almost all of the media and the establishment politicians at that time. And for decades now, here in Canada, there has only been one acceptable position among our political and intellectual elites: more and more and more immigration. Today, I would like to tell you the truth about mass immigration and radical multiculturalism. But first, let's speak about the numbers. The Liberal government has decided and has increased the number of new permanent residents from an average of 250,000 per year during the last decades to a planned 500,000 next year. This is an increase of 100%. And only 25% of them are skilled economic immigrants. So we must add the permanent residents, so that's another 700,000, temporary foreign workers, international students, and refugees, fake or real. Altogether, last year, Canada opened its door to 1.2 million newcomers. and we are a population of about 40 million people. That represents the entire population of Saskatchewan. In 2023, Canada's population increased by 3.2%, while the average population increase in OECD countries was 0.6%. Canada is the fastest growing country in the Western world. And already, 23% of our population was born outside of Canada. Almost 1 in 4, and this is fast increasing. Our ratio is higher than that of the US and the UK, where it's about 14%, and it's almost double that of France. As you know, mass immigration is pushing up housing prices and making the housing market unaffordable. In 2022, the OECD ranked Canada lowest among its 38 countries in terms of housing affordability. And Statistics Canada says rental inflation is running at 8.2% a year, nearly triple the consumer price index. Canada also has the lowest number of houses per capita today than any G7 country. And the construction of houses cannot meet the rapidly growing demand from homes caused by mass immigration. For 1.2 million newcomers in 2023, we built only about 240,000 new homes, and we needed 700,000 just to meet the demand. We will need to triple the number of new homes we build each year only to meet the demand. As you may see, it's simply math. There is no getting around it. The only real and immediate solution to the housing crisis is to end mass immigration, and both liberals and fake conservatives would rather not talk about it. A single family houses with a nice backyard where you can raise children have become totally out of reach. Mass immigration is pushing up housing prices, which discourages young couples to have children. And the collapsing birth rate is then used as a justification for even more mass immigration. This insane, vicious circle of self-destruction must end. We know that Canadian women are now having, on average, 1.3 children, which is far below the level of 2.1 children per woman necessary to maintain our population. We are told that we need more and always more immigrants because our society is aging faster. Newcomers, yes, are a bit younger on average than Canadians, but not enough to have a noticeable impact on the rate of aging. And the Liberal government is making matters even worse by raising the number of parents and grandparents accepted under the Family Reunification Program every year. And this, of course, is an easy way for them to pander and buy votes among immigrant communities, but again, it defeats the purpose. I can understand why immigrants would want to bring the rest of their extended family here, including older ones who will benefit from our healthcare system. But we cannot be the welfare state of the world. Government funding is limited, and we already fall short of caring for our own. Mass immigration is increasing pressure on our dysfunctional healthcare system, and our emergency rooms are overrun. 6 million Canadians do not have a family doctor, and wait lists for family doctor are unacceptably long. Last year, about 17,000 people died while waiting for medical care. But mass immigration has also an impact on our classrooms. They are overcrowded. Teachers are overwhelmed with immigrant students who have completely different cultural references, and the education of the next generation is being jeopardized. But let me talk about mass immigration and our economy. Mass immigration in itself cannot solve the labor shortages that affect some sectors of our economy. Immigrants are not only just workers, but also consumers of goods and services, which creates demand for labor in other sectors, and that is simply displacing the problem. This explains why we still have labor shortages in some sectors in Canada, even though our country has had one of the highest levels of immigration per capita in the world for several years. And in fact, the proportion of immigrants who come to Canada because they have the right skills based on their education, work experience, and also knowledge of an official language has been dropping dramatically under the Liberal government. Mass immigration is destroying our economy and reducing our standard of living. It keeps wages down and favor big businesses who love to hire cheap labor, rather than invest in productivity-enhancing technologies or increase salaries. That slows down productivity growth and keeps everyone poorer. And you know that under the disastrous Trudeau government, Canadians' overall standard of living has stagnated now for a full decade. And this was confirmed by Statistics Canada's latest numbers, which show that real GDP per capita is about the same today as it was in 2014, about $58,000. Any economic growth we've had in that period has been canceled by massive population growth. It's simple to explain. If the pie is getting bigger because we have economic growth by having more people, but the pie is getting bigger, but not as fast as the number of people who are eating it, we each get a smaller piece. Business lobby groups have for years been among the most vocal advocates for mass immigration. But it is not up to businesses, and it must be up to them to adapt to the needs of our society at large, not to society to radically transform itself so as to fulfill the needs of businesses. What is more important for us as Canadians, protect our standard of living, our social cohesion, and our way of life, or help businesses to make quick profits. Business lobbies pushing for mass immigration are not working in the interest of Canadians. If our main objective of Canada's immigration policy is to fulfill the economic needs of Canadians, it's an obvious failure. But you must add to that, to mass immigration, radical multiculturalism. Yes, mass immigration and radical multiculturalism are undermining our social cohesion and tradition of peaceful coexistence. It's rapidly changing the cultural character and social fabric of our country. In the past, immigrants who came here gradually integrated into our society. They kept some aspects of the culture of their country of origin, of course, and that influenced and changed our society. They became Canadian, but with a distinct flavor. This is the type of multiculturalism that enriches our society, and it's perfectly fine. But what is very different now about our immigration policy is that they are coming here to recreate the society and culture they left behind and live permanently in an enclave apart from the larger Canadian society. And moreover, being officially encouraged by the government to continue to do so, rather than to integrate into Canadian society and adopt Canadian culture and values. A nation must be based on a sense of belonging, of participating in a common national project, sharing the same values, being different from the rest of the world. It is only when these sentiments are widely shared that we can develop the trust and common understanding necessary for our institutions to function. And you may remember that our country was almost torn apart because of the misunderstandings between Francophone Quebecers and the rest of the country. And many First Nation members feel alienated from Canadian society. So, my question is, why would we want to emphasize cultural, religious, and ethnic differences by promoting multiculturalism, which have been one of the main causes of conflict throughout human history? This is insane. We can already see the consequences in the way ethnic politics has become the norm in Canada among the other political parties. They don't talk to Canadians. They address themselves to ethnic voting blocs, to Ukrainian Canadians, Italian Canadians, Chinese Canadians, Muslim Canadians, Sikh Canadians. For me, you are Canadian. That's it. Even our foreign policy now depends on appealing to these ethnic political clienteles instead of being based on the interest of Canada as a whole. If we continue on the present course, all these little tribes will have less and less in common apart from their dependence on government in Ottawa. Some people have accused me of abandoning my free market ideas because I talk about these issues. But This is totally misguided. Mass immigration, open borders, unvetted immigration, extreme multiculturalism, all of this has nothing to do with freedom. On the contrary, it is very dangerous, and it's a dangerous type of social engineering. It amounts to large-scale government intervention in our society and culture. That's socialism. It will bring increasing cultural balkanization, social conflict, potential violence, and we are seeing in other countries where division has reached a critical level. We have seen that. In 1994, Canadian author Neil Bisundat published Selling Illusions, The Cult of Multiculturalism in Canada. Bisundat wrote that encouraging ethnic differences leads immigrants to adopt a psychology of separation from mainstream culture. And he blamed multiculturalism for creating enclaves that isolate ethnic groups at the expense of the unity and cohesion of our society. This is what is happening in Canada today. The sense of community is disappearing as the elite class and establishment politicians push diversity, always more and more diversity, over integration and unity. Tribal conflicts are being imported. Violence in street is becoming common in our big cities. And let's stop being politically correct. We must recognize that not all values, not all social customs, not all cultures are equally valuable. Our distinct values are those of the contemporary Western civilization. They include democracy, individual rights and freedoms, including freedom of religious belief and freedom to criticize religion. Our distinct values also include equality between men and women, the equal treatment of all citizens under the law, regardless of their ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation. Our values include the rule of law, separation of states and religion, and that would be great if I can say separation of states and the economy, but we are not there. Our values include pluralism, loyalty to the wider society instead of to one's tribe. When I say that newcomers to Canada must integrate into our society and share our values, it is to these Western values that I'm referring. Values that our ancestors fought for. Values that explain why we were one of the freest, most dynamic, and most prosperous societies in the world. Classical liberal values. In most non-Western societies, still today, our values are not widely accepted or practiced. In fact, that's precisely the reason why millions of people from around the globe want to come to Canada and other Western countries. But we cannot save the world. And we must substantially lower the total number of permanent residents, foreign workers, international students, and refugees we accept every year to preserve our way of life. I'm even open to imposing a complete moratorium for a few years on the number of permanent residents we accept, until the housing market and other problems caused by mass immigration are back to normal and under control. There are claims that anywhere between 20,000 and 500,000 illegal immigrants live in Canada. People who stayed here after their refugee claims were rejected, or after their visas as international students or temporary foreign workers expired. The Liberal government is now planning to grant them permanent residency, which will encourage more millions to come to Canada by whatever means, including large-scale immigration scams that are bringing thousands of Indians to this country every year. Fake students, that's happening all across the country. I think all illegal immigrants should be deported. Canadian citizenship is a privilege, not something you give, not something we give you as a reward for not respecting our laws or cheating. We should also repeal the Multiculturalism Act and eliminate all funding to promote multiculturalism, and instead emphasize the integration of our immigrants into our society. Because the primary aim of Canada's immigration policy should be to economically benefit Canadians and our country, Canada, as a whole. It should not put excessive financial burdens on the shoulder of Canadians in the pursuit of humanitarian goals. Canadians are generous, but it is not our responsibility to solve all the world's problems, and it should not be used as a political tool to pander and buy votes among immigrant communities. This kind of ethnic politics practiced by all other political parties, the Conservatives, the Liberals, the NDP, the Bloc Québécois, the Green Party, will lead to even more social division. And so, I'm not exaggerating when I accuse the fake Conservatives and the Liberals of putting Canada, our country, on a road to destruction. Because if we allow these establishment politicians to continue to forcibly change the cultural character and social fabric of our country with mass immigration and extreme multiculturalism, Canada will eventually cease to exist as a nation. We have to reverse this trend if we want to make sure that we and our children still have a country that is like Canada we know, with its values and its unique identity. And we want that to be intact 25 years from now. And the only way to do it, the only way to do that, the only way to preserve our country is to tell the truth to Canadians about open borders, mass immigration policy, and radical multiculturalism. We must fight. And that's why we exist as a political party. Because our goal is to fight wrong ideas and promote good ideas with truth, facts, and reason. And that's the only way we'll be able to save our country, because mass immigration and multiculturalism undermine our economy, our culture, and our society. Thank you. Stay strong and free. Thank you.
I'm wondering, do you think it's a bigger problem of the illegal immigrants that are coming into Canada, the values they have, is that a bigger problem than the fact that the government's adopting policies that encourage those immigrants to maintain those tribalistic identities rather than becoming Canadian? Do you follow the question?
Both actually. What we don't do also is screening our immigrants. We used to do that 20 years ago. We used to have an interview with them. We used to ask real questions. But now it's open borders. And you don't know who is coming to our country, to Canada. So we need to have a strong screening. We need to be sure that they will respect our legislation. And we need to have people that will share our values, and values that I said in the speech. So that is not happening, and also we are promoting. I don't have anything about, the Chinese New Year. But if you want to celebrate that, do that with your own money. Why the federal government is giving subsidies to Chinese community to celebrate Chinese New Year? The federal government must give money to Canadians who wants to celebrate our history and our culture. But that's not happening in our country. Yeah, okay, yeah. Go ahead.
If you let me. Trudeau government destroying Canada. People telling that we need election in 2 months. What do you think about this?
We needed election yesterday. But, yeah, we needed election yesterday. But it's too bad, because I don't believe we'll have an election tomorrow or in 2 months, because look at the polls. The Trudeau government, and they're only there for power, so Trudeau won't be able to be reelected. So that's why I believe we will have an election only in October 2025, and we will have to wait. But for us, I wish we can have an election tomorrow. But I can tell you that our political party will be ready for the next general election. Thank you.
Hi, I have a two-part question. First, the housing crisis maybe is partially due to crazy immigration. But how much of that is the construction industry in general being hogtied by government entities? The next question, which is related to all these people coming in, what is Canada going to look like, or what is our relationship with the UN going to look like under a PPC government?
Okay, the first part of the question, I know that there's a lot of bureaucracy, and in some provinces it's very difficult and to have a permit to build new homes. It's happening in Quebec, all across the country. But like I said, yes, we must have more deregulation in that. But actually, I'm doing politics at the federal level, and if you want to solve that, that will be at the provincial and municipal levels. So what Pierre Poilievre is saying, because he doesn't want to speak against the mass immigration, is pandering to the immigrants. So he's saying, we will fix that. We will build houses. We will, scrap regulations. But he cannot control that. That's under provincial and municipal legislation. But if you do that, like I said, you will need to build 700,000 new homes every year. And what we're doing right now, we are building about 240,000 a year. That's the same number than 50 years ago. So yes, there's a problem with regulations and bylaws, but you cannot solve the problem tomorrow. You can solve the problem tomorrow by ending mass immigration. That's why we are speaking about that. And I understand that housing prices is going up, in large because of mass immigration, but also because of the Bank of Canada and the inflation, the deficit, it's all together. The other question about the UN, I said that the UN is a dysfunctional organization. So we will be with the UN and give money to the UN. when the UN will do something in line with our values. So what I can tell you, as a government, we will save a lot of money because the UN is a socialist, dysfunctional organization. So we are saying no to the Global Compact on Migration. We will withdraw from that. We would withdraw from the Paris Accord. We will withdraw from the pandemic treaty. So we are putting our country first and Canadian first. We believe in, the sovereignty of our country, but better, the sovereignty of the individual. So I'm doing politics at the federal level. If we have a smaller government, we'll have more freedom. But you must say also, Maxime, you won't win the election. You won't be in government tomorrow. Yes. But our goal, like I said, is to move the Overton window. Is to, immigration was a taboo subject in 2019. I was a racist, a xenophobe, anti-Canadian. They won't be able to say that at the next election because everything we said in 2019 was right, and it's even more right now. So we have an idea for this country, popular or not today, for not it's not important. So what is winning for the People's Party of Canada is to improve our percentage of the vote, to be sure that our priorities, our policies will be discussed at the national level, because right now you have these establishment politicians who don't want to have the discussion about mass immigration, multiculturalism, balancing the budget. But we are there to give an opportunity to Canadians to vote for another kind of political party. Because Jad said that I was working for the Montreal Economic Institute before being in politics and in the private sector. So our political party, it's a little bit like a think tank and a political party. And I believe that we will be elected. Maybe not at the next election, but we don't know what can happen. I can do a very good debate, and we can, have a couple of candidates that will be elected. Or, Poilievre will be elected maybe with a majority. And like Jordan Peterson said, and I agree with him, he said Poilievre will be elected with a majority, but the Poilievre government will be a disaster. And I agree with him, because he doesn't have the courage to speak about things that are may not popular today, but are important. He's afraid of the media. And, I was part of the Harper government. We had a minority government in 2006, a minority government in 2008, a majority government in 2011. And I said to myself, okay, we're going to be a real conservative government. We're going to do reform, small government, no deficit. Harper did the biggest deficit in the history of our country during that time. Why? Because he was looking at polls and focus group to be reelected with a majority. Poilievre will do the same. So maybe the PPC will be very successful with a lot of candidates elected in 2029. So that's why we are doing politics on the mid and long term. That's a new way to do politics. And for me, I'm very, very happy and very proud of our candidates, because they are there for the fight and for the long run, knowing that, it's a kind of a revolution that we want to do. But you can do that in one day. It will take time, and I believe, have times on our side. So sorry, I was a little bit long with my answer, but...
Just a very, very quick question, Maxime.
And I'll try to be quick on that one also.
Yeah, and you kind of touched on it in your response there, but so Justin Trudeau, I believe he described Canada as one of the first post-national states, and I think that there's a lot of truth to that, even though, I disagree with him on many things. If you look at the demographic changes in the country, while they've accelerated under his watch, they got underway 50 years ago. So my question is, how do you address your critics who simply look at reality and say, it's too late? What are the other alternatives for this country?
It's never too late to fight for the right things. And we will do that. Everything can change. I don't know what will happen in 2 years, in a month, but I strongly believe that we have the right vision, and it's not too late. Actually, it may be worse before being better, but we had 1.6% of the vote at our first election in 2019, and it took 15 years for the Green Party of Canada to have more than 1%, and we did that in our first year. So we'll see what will happen, and we had 5% at the last election. And what we are seeing is more and more popular, so that's why I believe that it's not too late.
Hi, Max. Thanks for coming back this year. Max, why are we not immigrating like-minded people into our country?
That's what I want to do. Absolutely. If you are coming to our country, you are coming to our country because you believe it's a better country than your country of origin. So come and share our values. But we must be proud of our values if we want them to share our values. And, the government is not promoting that. So, yeah, we must have people who share our values. That's why we are asking for, a screening. We are asking for an interview with each one of them. Yeah, we need to change that for sure. Because we have a government that is saying, every culture are equal. And this, when you are porting people immigrants from the third world, you have values in line with the third world. Sorry about that, but that's just a reality. So, yeah, because the government and also the opposition, for them, every culture is equal. For us, it's not that. We want to have people that will share our values.
We may be a post-national civilization, but we're not a post-value civilization. And further to Diane's point, what are our Canadian values that we are telling these people who may be from disparate cultures and 4 or 5 different languages, what values do we expect them to live up to? Is that being given as a government policy or an educational system so they know what they have to live up to, not just become tribal in their enclaves?
No, it is not. It is not. That's why we must change that. And actually, a couple of years ago, if you want to become Canadian, you'll have to speak English or French, because it's easier for you to integrate our society if you speak English or French. But now, today, it's not that important. So, you just need to do these changes, and we'll be able to regain our country.
Your reputation is as a free enterpriser. Thank you very much for trying to help me buy my milk from somebody I want to buy it from. So why in the world are you such a socialist on moving people? Why can't I
Socialist on what? On what, sorry?
Why are you such a socialist on people? Why can't I hire who I want? Why can't I invite into my house who I want from wherever in the world? Why do you want these people to have some sort of government permission before they're allowed to move next to me?
I'm considering myself as a paleo-libertarian, and there's other libertarians who believe in open borders. But, when you're doing that, like I said in my speech, that is social engineering. The government is telling, you and other people who wants to come to Canada that, if you share other values and you will come in this country. For me, you must share our values if you want to come to our country. But speaking to you, you're free to have friends to your questions. You're free to have friends, they can come as a tourist. We are open to that. We are not closing our doors. We are saying if you want to be a citizen in this country, there are some rules, but you can be a tourist. And actually, I'm welcoming and I'm not against any culture. I'm just saying the truth, but I want you to be able to do what you want to do in your life. That's why I want a smaller government. But on immigration, I don't want that to be decided by businesses. They just have to invest in better technologies if they want to be, more productive. Now that's not the case. The federal government is offering them cheap labor. Like I said, only 25% of them, of our economic immigrants, skilled immigrants, only 25% of them are real skilled immigrants. So why not 80%? That will be better for the economy and for businesses, but that's not the case right now. So we need to review all that. We need to have a national discussion on immigration. And I want to have that national discussion. I can tell you it will happen during the next election because that will be an important policy for us as a People's Party. And I strongly believe that Canadians are ready to have that discussion.
Mr. Bernier, there are more questions, but those people who want to go for lunch can probably go for lunch. If you're happy to take a few more questions, then we will let other people who want to go for lunch can do so.
What role, personally and perhaps as a platform plank issue in the future, would foreign policy have on the immigration question? Because Canada is arguably subsidizing some pretty nasty, disastrous wars that destroy countries and incentivize more immigrants, refugees coming over here. And I'd also partially argue that does create a partial responsibility, at least for refugees, to come over here. So is the foreign policy a plank issue in the future, potentially?
Yes, our foreign policy is, we need to focus on our country first. And also, we don't have to participate in all these wars, on this planet. We said that, for example, in Ukraine, I said we must not participate in that. What is happening actually right now in Gaza, I said, we must focus on our country, and I don't want to, be part of that and sending money and ammunitions and things like that. This country is broke, so we need to use the money to help Canadians first. And our foreign policy, I understand that there's refugees, but right now we have a lot of fake refugees that are coming to Canada. We need to be able to select the real refugees. Yeah, and there's a lot of refugees on this planet, but let's focus on the real one. You had some people who were crossing the border, the Roxham Road in my own province in Quebec, saying that they were refugees. They were not. And so let's just focus on the real things.
Oh, thank you, Maxine, and I really agree with everything you're saying. And so glad you're the one speaking out. But I just wanted to mention, my background, I support the community arts, and I'm just really curious about how much they spend on I call it multi-cult, rather than the artists. A lot of our questions is, what is it to be a Canadian? How do we celebrate and praise Canadian? And through the arts, connecting community to the arts. And so, I'll be curious to know how much they spend on that. And also another thing is, I think it's important to get involved locally. That's why I'm very involved in my community. I mean, we noticed, we go to City Hall and complain, like, why are so many of these apartments and condos at night, no lights? I mean, they're all offshore people buying them. I mean, there should be some policy about, we lose a lot of income because they're not, they're only here maybe 2 months or what. So there is many things even locally that we can do. And I really, we have to stand no matter what. And right now, like you say, we're a majority, but I don't really think we are. I think there's, look at the truckers, all the people that came out. And I think we just need great leaders, bold leaders, and don't listen to the naysayers. Thank you.
Thank you. The first part of the question is about how much money the federal government is spending on multiculturalism. I don't have the right number, but what I can tell you, it's millions of dollars. And I must say that we must spend that money, like you just said, to promote our culture, identity, our history, instead of promoting our differences first. The other part of the question was, yes, politics, it's not only at the federal level. What I'm saying to, people engaged in politics, start at your school board with all the woke, crazy philosophy. You can do the fight over there. You can do the fight at your municipal level. You can do the fight at the provincial level and at the federal level. Because, yes, we'll need everybody and we'll need that common sense revolution. So and it's always easier to be successful to change policies at the municipal level. It's more difficult, when you try to do that at the provincial or federal level. So yes, I'm asking everybody to be part of the change, be the change, and participate, provincial, municipal, federal, and like that we'll be able to win the battle of ideas. Thank you.
On the matter of housing,
yeah.
An interesting idea was floated by RFK in the American election. And his idea was to kind of curtail BlackRock's ownership and potentially, it could be extended to foreign ownership by changing the tax law around ownership, foreign ownership, and hedge fund ownership of housing. And that's something that actually is within the federal purview.
Yeah, absolutely. And we don't have a policy on that, but the tax laws are always the one that you use to try to change behavior. And I believe that can be a solution. I'm not saying that I'm against that. I'm saying that it's not part of our platform. We may have a look at it for sure.
Mr. Bernier, I want to get an inner look at the bureaucracy of the Canadian government. There are thousands of cities in India, and each city has literally tens of agencies that enable filling up form for you to come to Canada. Virtually all of them cook up documents. Most of the documents are fake. They cook up bank statements, they cook up educational qualifications, they cook up everything. My question is, there are 7 or 8 big offices Canadian government has in India. Are these people not aware of what is happening, that so much of cooking up of fake documents is happening? Or they are too politically correct to be able to sit in the boardroom and say, hey, there's something terrible going on here?
I believe that they are closing their eyes. They must know that, because I know it also, and I'm not over there. So they must know that. They don't want to deal with it. They're afraid to be called racist, but that must not be the case.
What's your view on birthright citizenship?
Yeah, that's happening everywhere. And what I said in the past, that we must change that. You know, it's a question of having people who will come here to build our country with us, not to try to just come here, have a baby, and leaving after that. Yes, actually, we must do something about that.
Mr. Bernier, thank you very much.
Thank
There's
you.
lunch outside.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much.